Test test 1 2 1 2 check check 1 2 1 2 test test 1 2 1 2 1 2 test test 1 2 check check test test 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 check check test test 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 Sorry, 1 second. Now, you still there? Hello? Okay, I'm confusing myself now. 1 second, I can't hear you. I could a second ago. And let me just... Let's mute. Unmute. Are you still there? One two 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2. Yeah, I'm coming through on the space and I'm going out live also. Turn that up a little bit before we get going here. Check check 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2.
Hey Emmet, can you hear me, brother?
Yes, I can hear
I
you,
think
sir.
it's just us.
Huh? One two 1 2 check check 1 2 1 2. One two 1 2 1 2 1 2. 1 2 1 2 check 1 2. 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2. Cool, I can welcome, sir. I can see you. I can see you and I see that you're muted, but you do have a mic.
An WhatsApp message, brother. Well, you are recording right now, so we are already live, basically. I
Yes.
think you should change the name Emmet Connor live on X. Nobody wants to hear that Irish fuck, you know. You just say Friday night conversations or something, and it will be fine. I think people will
Nobody
be
wants to hear
more
that.
eager to join, you know.
Nobody wants to hear that fuck. Like, yeah. Sorry, I don't know what I did. I think I completely cancelled the space because I have vMix open here as well, and I just practicing streaming to lots of platforms. So we're going out live on YouTube, X, Rumble, and Facebook.
That's very nice.
Yeah.
Uh,
Why not?
yeah, sure. You have to be omnipresent, right? Be everywhere, and
Yes.
that's it. And that's the internet game, right? I think probably 2 months from now, you're going to be doing those short videos on YouTube where you feel shocked, oh, take a look what this guy just said. And you start doing reactions, right? Oh, this is the bottom of the pit, right? I'm just joking right now.
Oh yeah, I'll do anything to get famous. But like I know I'm actually I'm feeling optimistic because obviously the space is it's going to take a while to build any sort of an audience, so I've no illusions about that. But my main thing is like doing interviews and longer form things. But I'm open to doing anything. But I just got a message here. But yeah, no, I'm feeling good. I'm feeling ambitious. Everything's good.
Awesome, brother. Well, count with me. You can count with me. I'm here in Brazil, but I know I can do one thing or two, right? And we can have this kind of amazing conversations because I have to be honest with you, Emmett.
Yeah.
It's kind of impossible to have these conversations in Brazil. I do have with my group, but it's not the same thing. It truly isn't.
Yeah, yeah, I can imagine. Well, the picture you painted last day was very bleak, about Brazil and the situation there. And I mean, this is it. This is just the world we live in. It's not everybody's the same, and you have to wade. You have to swim through an awful lot of shit to get to good conversations and so on. That's how I see it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so true.
Yeah, I'm still like I obviously I haven't really started to promote the interview from Jeff Nyquist last night. So what I'll do is soon I'm going to start creating clips and promote those. And on Sunday morning I'm on an Irish YouTube channel in the morning for an interview, and then a big guest on the 16th who is an Irish activist. She is involved with she exposes the trans ideology in the schools. So
Nice.
yeah, she's on the 16th. She's got a good name and we've got a mutual respect. So I think what will probably happen is I'm just going to keep going, and hopefully if I get a few big guests on, then that will raise my profile, if that makes sense.
Sure, yes, and especially I think it's a little bit I don't know the right word for it, but it's kind of difficult to navigate the X algorithm. At least I think X is the most important by now. X and YouTube, let's say, but X here, as we all notice it, uh, very few people are kind of blessed by the algorithm. So it's really hard to tell what we are doing wrong, what we are doing right here on X, because we truly don't know what's happening here in Brazil. Here in Brazil, I got a lot of denounces on my profile because I said some truths about a guy here, and I was part of his group. And then all of a sudden, all of his groupies started to denouncing my profile. So my reach is just pathetic,
Oh
right?
shit.
Yeah,
Shit.
it's terrible.
Yeah,
We are all victim of this bullshit because it's the mob, just a victim of the mob.
yeah, that happened to me. Well, a few days ago. I understand what you mean. The minute you have a wrong interaction with somebody and it affects your popularity, and then you
Yeah.
fall down the ladder again. It's a pain in the ass. But I had a few days ago because my job is like it's a very it can be physically difficult job. It's another normal job. I won't go into details, but basically sometimes you're very tired and also miserable in my job. So a few days ago, I put up some post about the Epstein thing and said that I don't think, I can't remember, I gave my opinion, and somebody sent a reply in the comments said, okay, pedo. That was their reply to me. And I said something, I didn't think I was being too controversial. So I don't know what I was thinking, but they really pissed me off. And I just told this person to fucking kill themselves. So, like, so then immediately I got a ban. Immediately got a ban of,
Impressive.
yeah, straight away. And I was like, wow, it's like they have bots. I mean, that person, I don't know if they got banned, but it worked. I think they're probably trying to get a reaction out of me, and it worked. So I got like banned for like 12 hours or whatever. It's annoying.
You can even say the N word, right? We can say a lot of words. We are now getting to a point that we can say the R word. And I was thinking, what's the R word? Oh, it's retarded. You can say retarded because yeah, this kind of is offensive to people. It's only offensive to retards, you know. And actual retards, they don't get offended, right? So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, it's who's on the receiving end. That's the thing. I actually don't like. I don't, because you understand me. You understand my work. I don't like the. I don't really like the whole. The fact that somebody at X is trying to like decide what's right and wrong. A lot of us like Musk and so on, and we appreciate X, but I don't like the fact that a fucking bot or some fucking teenager in Silicon Valley is deciding whether or not I am being an ethical person. So, if you go on to
yeah.
X, you can have 200,000 followers and speak absolute nonsense, communist bullshit, and you'll be okay. But if I tell someone, if I someone abuses me and I abuse them back and I use the wrong word, then I might get banned for a while or lose my profile or whatever.
And it's just ridiculous because it's the bot banning you. It's not even a moderator because the bot was programmed to just watch for some words, for keywords. And then you go and you just type those keywords and you get automatically flagged by the system. And it's just pathetic because
Mm,
actually we are living in an era of humanity that we have never seen this ever in our history. Look how quick people are to circumvent those types of censorships.
yeah.
Just look how quickly everyone has become. Because I can say retard. No, I can't write retard correctly, but I do can say retard. But I have to do it in another way. So it's just mind blowing what's happening. So you see, even our language has somehow become elastic in a way that the system will never be able to control it. Even the robots, when they start noticing that they are being observed, they start speaking in a language that we don't understand. So
Yeah.
can you imagine that?
Yeah, it's
Oh,
it's crazy. Yeah, yeah. It's definitely like, oh, sorry, I'm just making an adjustment to the volume here, so you're coming through nice and loud. Yeah, well,
no,
it's
no
it's
worries.
like really it depends on who has control of the technology. I think is the big thing. I mean, look at what's happening in, say, China. The social credit system, and they have their own social media. I think they have like 500 million followers, or sorry, social media users, but most of it is Chinese systems. And imagine, okay, people might think X is bad, but imagine what it's like in fucking China when you say or do the wrong thing. You might really be, you might end up in the prison camp.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, and this is the worst case scenario because I think that the bigger problem is that you have voiced your opinion, all right, so now you have 200 points less in your social credit score,
Yeah.
and now you can't take the bus. You just can't go to the supermarket anymore, or you can go to the supermarket, but you can use their services as a delivery, buying online, these kinds of things. So it's just ridiculous and it is pathetic. Uh, I think, Emmett, I think we don't have any type of defense against what's coming. I truly don't.
Mm.
And most people, at least this is what I think about my experience here in Brazil. But since the pandemic, since Corona Rona happened, um,
Hmm.
there's some sort of shared feeling of everyone that lives in the city. Excuse me for expressing myself as a monkey, but it's somehow people have a shared mutual feeling here in the city, at least here in São Paulo, that hey, we're all in this together. So you have to be patient and you have to obey. Okay. So, and if you don't obey, we are going after you. So it's just mind blowing. You look at these facial recognition cameras. Everywhere in UK right now, they are everywhere here in São Paulo. They are all Chinese cameras. They are all Chinese cameras in my city.
Wow.
And what's mind blowing, brother? It's mind blowing, Emmett, that people are just saying, "Oh, I don't mind being recognized in public. I don't mind walking down the avenue and the government knowing that, hey, Emmet Connor, ID X, born day, I don't know which day, whatever. They have all your information there just by you walking. So it's just, it's amazing. It's amazing because it's like
Mm.
trying to teach a dog that, hey, you shouldn't lick your balls. This is not uh, very hygienical. You shouldn't do that. It's a dog. It won't even understand you, right?
Wow. Wow, things are that bad over there. Really interesting. Maybe it's the sunshine and stuff and the nice weather. People don't give a shit. Is that part of it?
Maybe you're cracking the water distribution system because
Oh.
I think I think it's the last case. As I said, I think it's drugs on people because we have in Brazil a phenomenon that didn't happen anywhere in the world. That in the last 40 years we lost 30 points on average of our IQ. So can you imagine? I was telling you this our last spaces that
Mm.
hey, it has become impossible to hold the conversation here with normies. It has become impossible because they are now answering and reacting to what they think you said and what they think you meant. So you say something and you're being completely literal. Hey, it's so hot today. What Emmett tried to say with that? I think Emmett's trying to say this. Brazil is the only place in the world that people will read any text and they will ask themselves, "Oh, I see that the author is saying X, but what does he really want to say?" Because I don't think it's X. X is just a smokescreen. They are all like that.
Wow.
They are all, and this is literally the perfect mark of the functional illiterate. He, he can understand what he's reading, what he's listening. So that's why he feels in power to apply any meaning to your words. Can you understand the level of this problem, right?
Wow. That's like yeah, I was talking about that a lot recently. It was like the whole uh, people being stuck in like they need an alternative explanation for everything. They can't just accept things at face value. So they think there's some sort of cryptic hidden meaning behind everything. Like
Yeah.
it's really annoying. Like everything's a conspiracy. So hi, how are you today? I'm feeling good. Are you sure? Maybe you don't really mean that. Everything is complex rather than people taking things on face value. What I think is part of that as well. I talked about it in interviews and stuff before about the postmodernist thing, the influence of postmodernism, and it was in the book as well about how people make up their own version of reality. It basically makes people fucking delusional and not present, and affects intelligence and stuff. But anyway, that's just kind of a thought I had.
Sorry, I was sending to spaces to some of my friends that speak in English here in Brazil, and all these guys here in Brazil. I mean, I have to tell you this, bro. We are basically loners here in Brazil. There's no one like us, and we have
Wow.
8 years of English in our public schools, right? So some people they don't have 8 years; they have 5 years of English in the public school. But all those who went to private schools here in Brazil, they were having English classes since first grade, basically, since they were 6 years old.
That's cool.
And none of them speak in English. None of them. If you say to someone that, hey, yeah, I do speak English, what the guy puts this on his resume, and you go to him and say, hey, how are you doing? And it's enough for that person to to freeze. Gabriel Ricardo is one of my bros that just entered right now. Let's see if any more Brazilians will arrive. But I have to be
Awesome.
honest, bro. Things are not looking good here in Brazil, and what's a shame and what's terrible is to witness that basically the whole world's becoming like this. The whole
Yeah.
so-called Western world. And at the same time, the communists, they're selling the idea that, hey, look how the Western world, look what the Western world is becoming, and look how good we are, look how solid we are. And it's just propaganda, the lowest level of propaganda we can imagine, right? Oh, it's and what you said about people wanting dynamic and complex explanation. This is this is the food. This is the fuel of social media, basically, right?
Yeah.
People can't be simple anymore.
Yeah, there is a, this kind of not philosophical, maybe it is, but see, I've believed for a long time, Victor, that there is such a thing as it's going to sound silly, but there is such a thing as reality, the way things actually are. And the difference between an intelligent person, above average intelligence person, and a person who isn't so intelligent is that people who are a bit more intelligent are a little bit better at describing reality, how it actually is. We might have all different names for those people. We might say they're intelligent or they're charismatic or perceptive or whatever it is. But there is definitely always a truth to a situation. Let's take like the world's agenda, right? The globalists, globocommie, whatever people want to call it. There is a truth about that. You know what I mean? There's all these opinions flying around, but they're not all correct. But I think that one of the things we tell ourselves sometimes in this life is that because it's connected with the ego. There's a lot of people going around who are terrible at understanding this stuff, but they're full of confidence and they just completely talk out of their ass, or they've been brainwashed or whatever. So that's how I look at things when I'm interacting with people, say on the bigger picture issues, globalism, so on. I'm always seeing how on the ball this person is. I know I'm trying to take something maybe complex here and make it make sense, but I hope you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sure. And truthfully, what I think, and I know that I understand that I sound repetitive saying this, but I truly think that the whole world's becoming Brazil. I truly think, and this goes in a spiritual level.
Yeah.
Because the problem here in Brazil is that people don't care anymore. So it's not even that they think they are somehow like Nietzsche, like, oh, I am beyond good and evil. Okay, so because I was made with love.
Yeah.
When my mom was fucking, she said that she loved the guy, who is my father. Brazilians understand life like that, and it's just crazy. Because
Yeah.
if we think about it, the three groups, and this I'm repeating Olavo now, but basically the three groups that run society, right? And Olavo puts it like the Sino-Soviet bloc,
Yeah.
right? I was going to say in Portuguese. So the first one is the Sino-Soviet bloc. The second one are somehow the globalists, what people call nowadays the globalists, the Bilderberg group, and all these Western folks.
Hmm.
And the third group is Islam, are the Muslims.
Yeah.
So I think the main point of this is that these guys, they don't respect reality. They don't respect reality.
Hmm.
They don't have any respect for reality. So what kind of results they can achieve by having this mindset?
Yeah.
Just lunacy, right? It's what we are living right now.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. And like I talked about it, like the having respect for the creation, I suppose. Like the way things should be in the natural order. And I've said that a lot, that the whole Marxist ideology, that it basically attacks and destroys everything that's natural. It has that, we can call it Satanism if we want to, but it seems to be toxic, whatever it touches. And I think basically, say if you take say the trans thing, for example, right, we can clearly see there's consequences with messing around with the natural order. Like if you take a young boy or a young girl, you start putting on hormone or puberty blockers and hormone replacement therapy and all this shit, all it does is results in the breakdown of that individual physically and psychologically. Or if you
Yeah.
take, say, when you apply Marxist theories to an economy, and you think, okay, it's not fair that we have rich and the poor, so we'll take from the rich, give to the poor. You're fucking around with the natural order, And when you fuck around the natural order, you just cause chaos. And that's why, I was talking to someone earlier about Klaus Schwab and the WEF. When you get, they're basically control freaks with a God complex, and they think they have the right to change how things go naturally. Mass immigration, same thing. Like, there are people in the world who think we would be better off in a world where there's no distinct races, where we are all mixed into a bag and be happy little comrades. There'll be no more oppression because there's no more social classes. It's a fucking pipe dream. It's just a fantasy. And to do stuff like that, you need to fuck the natural order. You need to take control and use coercion. And I think that's where a lot of the destructive stuff comes from. What do you think, Victor?
And I would like to make a point about the kids. If you think about it, a kid naturally will model his mom, her mom, her father, whatever. So when I was a child, and I mean when I had 5 to 6 years old, it was completely normal for me to, at least try to walk in the high heels that my mom owns. So she left the high heels, whatever, right, in our house, and we both used to do that, me and my brother, and were we gays? Were we thinking that, oh, maybe I am a woman? No, not at all. We were just trying to, at least balance ourselves, walking in high heels. And when we were a kid, we were able to at least, not dress. I don't know. I don't remember the correct term for wearing a shoe, but whatever, right? After that, our foot got so long, our feet got so long that it's become impossible. But when you see a kid or a 5-year-old boy, he's trying makeup, he's playing with makeup. It's not even trying, because trying is something that teenager will do. But the kid right there, is just playing with makeup. Oh, no, I think he's a woman. Do you understand the level of insanity? Right?
Yeah, I get you. Yeah, it's over. It's just it's crazy.
Because if you wait 5 minutes, you will see that, at least if it's a normal family, the father will arrive, and then all of a sudden the boy will start to imitate the father. And he will understand that, hey, I prefer to imitate my father. I'm better off like this, and it's more natural. It's more normal to me, right? But no, you just have to accept. Like, the kid made a decision. Oh, okay. So not a decision. The kid's playing with makeup. Oh, I think he's deciding on his identity, on his sexual identity. A 6-year-old kid, right? So this is insanity, to say the least. And these guys, they don't have. You see, all of those who take this seriously, at least this identity stuff, all those who take this seriously, what is their end? They always end themselves. I understand that you're recording this for YouTube, so I'm going to try to be a little bit more
PC.
How do I say PG?
Yeah,
PC and PG, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And,
yeah.
Because this is the thing, right? So okay, everyone who took this seriously had the same fate. And the fate was reality was so overwhelming that I had to end it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's true. And I did. You're bringing up some great points, and it's triggering off so many thoughts in my head. But I remember I interviewed this guy in 2018 called Dr. Quinton Van Meter. So anyone listening, if you've got YouTube open, just type in "resolving reality," or the link is on my profile page actually here on X. And but I interviewed this guy called Dr. Quinton Van Meter. It was a long time ago, 2018's audio only. Production wasn't very good, but we were talking about the trans stuff, and he said, this is a psychological problem that needs, treatment as a psychological issue, not surgery and not sex change and all this stuff. And it was so obvious, but so correct. And it was a great conversation. One of the things he talked about was there's actually, anyone can have a look on YouTube for trans regret. There's a lot of people who've transitioned, quote unquote, who regret what they did and want to change back. And actually, there's a guy called Walt Heyer who's quite popular in the States. who actually was a man most of his life, and then what he did was he changed to be a woman. This is in like his mid 30s. I swear, man, he was like 35 or whatever. He decided to be a woman, get the surgery done, all this shit, and then
Just like my father.
really,
Yeah.
really.
Oh, no, no, I'm
you,
just playing, right?
you
Yeah.
bastard! But what he did was
This whole story is triggering me. Please stop, okay? I remember my father. Things were not.
I thought this was interesting. You're sitting there like crying and reliving the whole trauma and stuff. Sorry, I didn't know I was doing that. Like PTSD. You should have told me before we went live. But this guy,
Yeah, my
this
father is a training, right? And he believes it.
but
And
this guy, he actually changed back. Like he changed back. He kind of he regretted what he did and he rolled back the changes, and now he actually speaks out about trans. He travels around America talking to people about his story and stuff. So a very brave guy. But we know how, yeah, sorry, the reason why I thought of this guy, his name is Waltair. The reason why I thought of him is because you mentioned earlier, when you see a kid playing in clothes or whatever, you don't draw any big conclusions from it and think they want to change their fucking gender, you know. But actually this guy Waltair, his grandmother was the one who, when he was a little boy, she dressed him up as a girl a lot and start wishing he was a girl. So she put the idea in his head. Now, isn't that fucked up? So apparently
yeah,
he blamed his grandmother for pushing him down that road. But so there's a bit of that going on too. But it's kind of complex because probably but before I pass the mic over, I'll quickly go over this as well. I do think that, like, because of the changes in our diets and the atmosphere and the environment in the 20th century, humans have changed a little bit genetically. And I still think there's obviously male and female, but I think there's been an increase in people with, you know, gender dysphoria and confusion and stuff like that, because we've changed a little bit genetically and perhaps the culture has changed. It's a huge subject, but the reason why I bring this up is because, you know, I think that if kids have these issues in their teens, they need to we need to deal with it the right way and not push them down this road of getting all these changes, particularly before puberty. But anyway, I'm ranting now, but please jump in.
true. So true. And if you think about it, when you have a teenager, he's already going through a lot of changes in his body. So his hormones, his blood,
Yeah,
his own physical body, because one day you wake up and you're just taller, right? When you are a teenager. And all of this is happening. So you already are in a highly stressed environment, biological environment, let's put it like that.
mm,
And then all of the sudden, you sum up with the fact that we nowadays a teenager, he's basically being loaded with vaccines that we don't know what's in there. He's
yeah,
being loaded up with instant ramen and other sorts of just delicacies from the 21st century. But
mm,
I was going to make a point about the guy's grandmother that you talked about.
yeah,
And see, Antonio Gramsci. Antonio Gramsci used to tell his kid, his daughter, he used to tell fairy tales for her to sleep, but he was changing the end of all of the histories that he was telling his daughter. And also, he was instilling communist ideology on the fairy tale, right? So look how sick this person was,
yeah,
right? And and nowadays, this is the modus operandi of these guys, right? They are all like this. Oh, we don't have to force feed you anything. Actually, we can, and we are force feeding you. But what's really important, we are going to tell you through movies, through music, right? We are going to tell you a very sad story with a hopeful ending, and all of a sudden you are believing in what we're saying. So it's just mind blowing, right? I have to ask you for 1 minute, right?
yeah.
For a pause of 1 minute because I will have to grab a drink, okay, in my kitchen.
Oh
I
no,
will be. I will still listen to you.
no,
Okay, I will
no
just grab a
worries.
drink. Okay,
No worries. Are you
it's
sure?
very
It's, are you,
quick.
you need to, do you need to go and cry because I reminded you that your dad is a tranny? Is that why you need a break?
No, I have. This is not a problem anymore for me. I have accepted my father as he is now. Can you imagine, bro? If you met my father is exactly no, it's not he's not exactly like, but he's like Charlie Sheen. You know,
Oh well,
he's kind of like that. You know,
Charlie
Charlie Sheen
Sheen tranny.
when he was a psycho.
Oh,
No, the
okay.
Charlie Sheen, the actor, you know,
Oh yeah, yeah.
who was a crackhead, and so my father is just like that physically, right? And mentally, he's kind of on the same spectrum of Charlie Sheen. The guy is unique. Okay, but just give me 1 minute. I will just grab some tea and put some alcohol in it. Okay, just 1 moment, 1 second.
Yeah, no worries, man. No problem. So, anyone listening, thanks for joining, folks. We're streaming live to a bunch of different video platforms. I'm just kind of dicking around here with some new software. I think my mic's a little bit low. I might adjust that. So, I'm going out live on YouTube, not X at the moment, but Facebook, and what's the other one? I forgot already. Oh, Rumble as well. So, yeah, I kind of took a bit of a hiatus last year, busy with other stuff, and then back now with a new wave of interviews, live streams, X Spaces, the whole 9 yards. So I've kind of this is the first time I've had a home studio set up for quite a while. Fix that mic audio, make that a little bit better. So the last year and a half since I left Malta, I was kind of moving around and just working off laptops and so on. But this is the first time I've had a proper setup. So I have a decent desktop computer, spent some few dollars on that one, and a bunch of monitors and all that. So very exciting times. It's just trying to fit in interviews and stuff whenever I have the chance. For anyone who hasn't seen, I'd recommend the Jeff Nyquist interview from last night. It's pretty good. A few tech mistakes at the start, but very interesting conversation. I suppose, like being a host of a show and interviewing guests, they're always going to throw different angles at you and opinions that you might not have yourself. So I'm always willing to listen to people. But it was about the Epstein situation, just saying that he, in his opinion, as an expert on communism, that it was more than likely a kind of a KGB honey trap operation, or used to be the KGB, and that it's kind of coercion. It's a very old trick to get control of people politically. What you do is you get people involved in things like drinking or sex or parties or drugs and stuff like that. My typical weekend, basically, you get them involved in stuff like that as a joke, and you just kind of film it or you document it somehow. So you have leverage over them. And actually, there's a guy, Yuri Bezmenov, who was in I have a section in the book dedicated to Yuri, where he talked about how the Soviets used to invite people to Moscow, and the minute they got off the plane, they were handed drinks. He used to get people drunk, get them vulnerable, and that's how they used to coerce people in the system. So now, in the case of Epstein, I don't know if it's true, like what Mr. Nyquist was suggesting. Seems to be kind of true. I'm not emotionally invested, but I do know this stuff kind of goes on, and nothing would shock me very much. Victor, you recovered now emotionally? Just checking.
Yeah.
You sure?
Yes, I'm totally fine right now. I got over the drama of my father, trying to be a tranny here in Brazil, because just so tough. Can you imagine we as a black family trying to be a tranny here? Yeah, it's just too much oppression. Right?
Wow.
Oh, it's so crazy. I'm just going to make a comment about Jeffrey Epstein.
Sure.
But I have to repeat about this, for the new people or for those that are listening now on YouTube.
Yeah.
Guys, here in Brazil, if you go to a public hospital, you will see basically an ad made by the government. There will be a poster that was put there by the government, which clearly states, hey, if the doctor or anyone from the hospital don't call you by your training name, just call the police and we will handle. It's just like that. They're just threatening people right now. Oh no, it's not Emmet, it's not Kobe O'Brien there. Okay, it's Janice or whatever, right? Whatever black name he resolved to have. But what's crazy?
That is my black tranny name. What you said there, that is my black tranny name.
Just Shaniqua, right? The
Shaniqua
red
Connor.
hat Shaniqua, because you're Irish. So to be truthful to you, Emmett, if you think about it, Epstein now has done more noise after he's gone, right, than before. And now that we have the files, we have even more noise, right? Because one of the first signals we received was that probably Epstein is Mossad, right?
Yeah.
And then why people were having this speculation, obviously, because Maxwell father was a Mossad, was part of Mossad. Actually, Maxwell father, for anyone who has studied, knows that, hey, Maxwell father was actually, Robert Maxwell, was a triple agent, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah, so, and the problem, I said this with Gabriel Ricardo, right, who is a speaker now. Gabriel is my co-host on our Brazilian show, Way Beyond the Twilight Zone. And we are talking about this, about Epstein. And what I say is this, that a triple agent or even a double agent, what is difficult for you to measure is his loyalty. Who is his loyal to,
Mhm.
right? And this is a natural question that emerges from this whole situation. And it's just crazy. But everyone was like, oh, no, no, Epstein is not from Moscow. Epstein hates Russia. He actually loves Israel. And when you go over at the documents, you say that, hey, Epstein had problems with Israel, and Epstein had many ties with Russia,
Yeah.
many more that we used to imagine, right before all this was leaked. But yeah, I don't know. It's just it's like football, right? And football for Americans is one thing, for us is another thing. But anyways, it's just like a basketball game. Oh, it's Chicago Bulls versus whatever, New York Yankees. I don't know. You see, I'm
Mhm.
way too into sports, right? I think New York Yankees are baseball or something, but there's a lot of people wanting to speak. Let's pass the mic, right?
Yeah, no worries, man. And before I pass it over, just anyone listening, please do retweet the space. You think it's first time on the microphone. Yeah, anyone listening, please do retweet the space. If you're listening on Facebook, throw in a comment and subscribe, all that good stuff. And I'll bring up the two gentlemen now in a second. So actually, I'll bring Will. Gabrielle was here first, but thanks, Will, for joining us. Gabrielle, you can go ahead. Your mic is enabled there.
Thank you, Emmet, for having me tonight. It's a great pleasure to be here and to meet you and all the people that you have
Que
around.
formal, pô.
The point that yeah. The point that I was about to do in our Telegram is the fact that we are not dealing with a political difference, and when we see it like this, we are not going in the right direction to um, to talk about this thing. I think that these people that is called today as woke, they have their particular creed, and this is not new. When we talk about, for example, Eric Vogelin, when he talks about the politics and in the 19th century and 20th century, he talks about this a confusion era. And what is this? It's a point where the state becomes a species of creed based on science. So when we talk about Emile Durkheim or other people that came after them, this positivism that comes to society, and we have to deal with things by science and technique all the time. When we talk like this, we sometimes we don't understand. We think that it's just about technique, but it's not. It is a creed. It is almost a religion. So when we talk about the woke culture, and I think that putting the woke as a left movement, I think that is not correct by now. Because how I see the woke culture is the politicization of everything in your life. Everything. In Brazil, I don't know if Victor told you about this, but we have flip flops here in Brazil that you use in your feet,
Mm.
to stay home or in a place that you are cozy or something like this. And this particular brand that is one of, I think that is the largest brand in the world. It is a Brazilian company made something like Jaguar did in Europe, like a woke campaign,
Oh yeah,
but
yeah.
it wasn't woke like this campaign of Jaguar or Bud Light recently on US. We are talking about something that was a little bit shady, in a gray zone. They talk something, but if you are not that uh, close to politics day by day, you won't feel like it is something bad, for someone to say. But okay. But the actress in this campaign is known by the words. She won a Golden Globe recently for a film that is based on dictatorship that happened here in Brazil in '64,
Hmm.
and he is related to the left. So was what they thought, and the right here in Brazil, the right wing started to cut their flip flops. You know, oh, I won't use it
Yeah.
anymore. It doesn't make sense. Man, how can you do that? It's something so stupid. You are fighting against flip flops. It doesn't make sense at all. But people usually see woke as this movement based on the rainbow and things related to the LGBT community and things like that. But is not the point. The point is they have their secular creed. They it's almost a religion. So if you talk to these people about their belief system, is almost like going to someone as a Christian or as a Muslim and
Hmm.
talk to these people and say, "Oh, Allah doesn't exist or God doesn't exist."
Yeah,
These people
like
will
a
feel
cult.
very affected and yes, and offended by this. So if I say that uh, a man can't get pregnant, what would happen to me? This happened earlier this year. The Josh Hawley, I believe that this is his name. He's a senator in U.S. and he was talking to people, and was talking to a doctor. She was a doctor. Can a man get pregnant? Can a man get? And she was trying to avoid the question,
Hmm.
and oh, this is a very you were trying to politicize this question.
Yeah, it's
It's not about
complex.
this, it's
Yeah.
about identity. Yeah, it's a complex question. You can ask it like this, but he kept saying, but can a man get pregnant? No. You have to answer now. Can a man get pregnant? And she was trying to avoid it and became almost a joke,
Yeah.
when you see. But it is a joke if you don't see it properly. What are we talking about? We are not talking about um, politics system. We're talking about a belief system.
Yeah.
So this changes the whole perspective. We are not talking about uh, this stuff, like Victor said before,
In the
that
right
that
way.
happened in communism in the 20th century or 19th century. That was about this ideology, and we talking with the people that are oppressed in our society. No,
Hmm.
it has this behind it. Of course, we have it. All of them mostly are from the left side,
Hmm.
but they changed the perspective. Now they're religion. So it's just to see the laws.
Yeah.
Here in Brazil, the if you talk something that they believe that is a bad thing for someone in LGBT community,
Hmm.
is the same thing that you being in prejudice on a black people, brown people here in Brazil. Is the same law. Now it is the same thing. So if you keep saying, "Oh, you're a man, but you see yourself as a woman, but your chromosomes doesn't say so," and things like this,
You're going to
you can go
prison.
to
Yeah.
jail.
Wow.
You're going to prison. That there are lots of priests
Yeah.
and pastors that are accused. They are in tribunals trying to avoid these accusations, but it's a law, and this law comes in our last right-wing government. That was Bolsonaro.
Yeah.
And under
Yeah.
his watch,
Mhm.
it came this law.
Yeah, Victor
No,
mentioned
you
it last
see
time.
that.
Yeah, I'm just going to bring Will
Yeah.
in a
So
second. Gabriel, I'm just going to bring
okay.
in Will in a second. Yeah, but great points. And Victor actually told us about some of this last time. It's shocking what's happening there. But I just want to bring in Will because you've been waiting a little while. Will, good evening. How's it going? How's your
Thank
mic?
you.
Thanks, Gabriel.
Yeah, thanks very much, Emmet, and to yourself as the host. And thanks very much for introducing me to Marxism. It was a very, very interesting thing to study and led me down the road to communism and the fall of communism. And there were points in history that were very, very interesting that kind of echo what's going on today, I do believe. The LGBTQ community and the gay, the transgender and other such things are being used as a weapon against ordinary people. And it's about making up silly rules, enforcing them on people, breaking people's will, breaking them down, making them feel depressed, unhappy, keeping their heads down while the elites do whatever they want. That's my read on it. And I just like to draw a line under Jeffrey Epstein. Nobody seems to realize, I know the man has done horrible things. I'd never discount him. He was a blackmailer. I don't care who he was working for. He
Mhm.
could be working for Mossad. He could be working for the Russians, the Egyptians, the fucking Israelis, whoever. The man was a child abuser and a blackmailer. He should have been put in jail and left there for a long time. Like, there's 3 million Epstein files. This is 3 million blackmail files that he obviously held on people. Maybe I'm not reading it right or reading it wrong. Everybody is implicated him. He went everywhere. He was introduced to everyone. He had this bit of a smile. He was supposed to be a financier. He was supposed to be a scientist, but he knew a lot of things about a lot of people. He
Mhm.
was a professional blackmailer. That's all he should be given. These files should be read over. I mean, there's people named him. They say Donald Trump was involved. They say Elon Musk was involved. Donald Trump said he threw him out of Mar-a-Lago. Elon Musk said he wasn't involved, and everybody's been smeared by this. The guy was a blackmailer. That's it. Simple as that. We should get on with straightening the world and stop giving these people so much attention. The reason their fire is being fueled, like the LGBTQ community, I'm not blaming. A lot of them don't want this happen. There's a lot of gay men becoming very uncomfortable, lesbian couples becoming very uncomfortable because their movement, I believe, is going out of control. It's infiltrating people's normal lives. And just like the last speaker has highlighted there, like, authoritarian governments have grabbed onto this, and you daren't speak out about it or you'll end up in jail. Now, what are they going to extend that out to? And I'd hark that out to Marxism. The elites are separating themselves from the ordinary people. They're causing up the big business, and they're using LGBTQ as a stick to beat the ordinary person with. It's very hard to get your head around, if you're a male teacher like Enoch Burke, who was teaching in a religious school, and one child came in, and bear in mind, 1 in 3,000 children are transgender. That's the actual figure. Came into the school and wanted to be called they. One teacher objected, and 560, or I suppose 70 days in jail later for defying court orders. Now, just to bring it back to realism, there is a split, I believe, coming into the Irish judiciary, where a judge in a court in Ireland, where a two-slit child was brought in front of the judge who was going through transition. I believe they were transitioning from a girl to a boy. The judge refused to agree with this and said, well, the child is clearly a girl. I can't perjure myself in the court. And now it's starting to break down for them, because the Irish, as you know, Emmett, don't swallow bullshit too easy, and they're really starting to straighten it out in the courts, because we signed the seated deal there lately. Our politicians signed the seated deal, which means that the Irish courts, even the Supreme Court, has been superseded now to an international court. So the legal people feel under threat, and they feel like they're losing a grip on the rule of law in Ireland, and that they're becoming irrelevant. and they could be losing their jobs quite quickly. So that's my take on what's going on in Ireland and the world. And I believe if ordinary people keep waking up, as what I've seen now, I've been reading in the headlines there lately that there's a lot of parents getting very concerned about what their children are being taught in the Irish schools with the removal of religion and ceremonies and things like they went through, the rite of passage, and they're being replaced by these ideologies and things that are kind of upsetting their children. Or as one man said to me, I'm a general foreman on site. My supervisor came to me, because obviously everyone's supervised now, and said to me, and this is why I'm talking to Emmet tonight, why I got involved with Ireland in a Wake, why I got involved with Area Kind, because I wanted to find out what was going on with my men. He came to me and he said, William, do you know what's being taught inside in the schools? Because my daughter came to me this evening and said, I can be unicorn daddy, and if you disagree, I'll be taken away from you. That upsets my men, and it's upset this guy as well,
Yeah.
and he doesn't rightly know what's going on. So parents are becoming very worried as well, and parents are voters. So I do hold out a little bit of hope. There's a lot of doom and gloom, but I hold a lot of hope out for the future, that people are slowly but surely starting to wake up to this, and they are starting to reject it.
Yeah, great points, Will. And before anyone else jumps in, I just want to, as usual, everyone make sure you retweet the space. If you're listening on YouTube, share around as well. Great points, Will. And for anyone who doesn't know Will is, I like talking to people like Will, as well as another one is Jana London, who was on the space last night. People who are involved with what I would call the effects of global communism on the ground. So Will is really knowledgeable about the climate change movement, which is one of the outgrowths of Marxism, right? It's one of the sub-agendas, I call them. So the agenda of Marxism or global communism is global control, and there's lots of sub-agendas like, mass immigration, radical feminism, climate change, BLM, you name it. And actually, to tie into what Gabriel was saying earlier, the best way we can all look at this, it's a cult. It's an international cult movement, and there's lots of different types of ways you can join and be involved. And it taps into your ego and tells you that you're special. You're going to be part of this movement that's going to save the world from itself. And that's where all the fanaticism comes from. And what Gabrielle was talking about earlier, when you ask them a straight question on something that should be a fucking axiom, right? An undeniable piece of truth like gravity, or we need oxygen to live. When you ask them a question, what is a woman, or can a man have babies? They can't give you a straight fucking answer. That's indoctrination. We have to look at this as being a cult. But another one just joined the panel is my good friend, Honey Badger from the States. So good evening, Honey Badger. Welcome to the show. You've got the mic.
Oh, thank you so much. Can you hear me okay? I am driving, so thank you.
You sound good.
It's great to see you. It's great to see you, Emmett. And as a matter of fact, the gentleman that just spoke, and one of the things that he brought up is basically who cares who Jeffrey Epstein was an agent of. I think you're hitting the nail on the head, and we're dancing around the actual topic because he was the blackmailer in chief. Well, when you're a puppet for demons, you really don't have to pick any single person for any entity for an agent to act on the behalf of. And what is one of the titles that we give the devil? Is the accuser. The devil is the accuser. And so when you consider it from that perspective, you're absolutely right. He was the agent of demons. And all of the, so whomever he was formally working for, this was his charge. These were his walking papers. And we've talked a lot about this, what I would call American Maoism, and how the communist globalist movement subjugates specific cultures. Well, what we're seeing in the United States is basically Maoism with American characteristics, with this like weaponized empathy, and particularly, I would say a large reason is because the American culture, particularly our politics, have become so feminized. Women lead or think with their heart, and they tend not to look at things objectively. Henceforth, when there's a cause, they are not looking for objective facts. They're looking for what makes them feel the best. And there's a lot more I would like to say, but I just don't want to hog the stage. Emmett, and I'm looking forward to listening to the rest of the conversation. But thanks so much for having me up, Emmett.
No problem, Sonny Badger. I love it. Great to hear you. And by the way, anyone listening, when I was well, okay, I'm always a little bit crazy, but when I was extra crazy a few years ago, and I went to, I gave up a business in Ireland as a driving instructor of all things. I was making a lot of money. I was kicking ass. I could have worked 7 days a week if I wanted to, all day pretty much. I made loads of money, but I didn't finish that damn book. And I was thinking I have to finish this book and get the message out there. So I called a friend of mine in Malta, who I went to drama school with 20 years ago, and said, "That's it, you bastard." He's Scottish. I said, "That's it, you Scottish bastard. I'm coming over." And I went to Malta, finished the book, and I kind of got into my headspace there. It took me months and months to finish it. And I took a leap to go to the States, and I started to inquire with people and so on. But basically, Honey Badger was the first person who gave me an interview. It was when I arrived in Dallas. I actually spent a few days in Boston, which was lovely. I was walking around the place, freaking myself out at what I did. Like, I had a big bag of cash and a couple of laptops and all my stuff, but I've never had a problem with having balls. In fact, I'm too much. Like, there's a thin line between being brave and being stupid. But there I was walking around Boston thinking, what the fuck am I going to do now, you stupid bastard? That's how I talked to myself. And I ended up in Dallas and I actually arrived in the hotel. And I before I moved into my apartment, and I was literally unpacked the bags, and I was due to go on a space with Honey Badger, set up the mic, and just got straight into it. And that was the first interview I had, and I did quite a few. Like the funny thing is, I went over there with the intention of doing some live speaking engagements, but I mostly just did podcasts and interviews and so on from the room I was in Dallas. But I got one presentation done finally. It was right at the end of my trip. At the end of my 3 months, I wiggled into the University of Dallas, and that's the presentation you can see as my pinned tweet here on X. So, it's funny in Ireland, like will tell you, Victor and Honey Badger, will tell you in Ireland, it's hard to be liked by everybody. Never going to happen. You're always going to have critics. And in Ireland, I've been accused of all sorts, including being a grifter. And it makes me laugh because I gave away a business where I was raking in thousands of euro. I had all this cash, and I ended up blowing all my money taking this chance. And I made like 700 euro from the book, but it cost me like over 20 grand, everything I did. But totally worth it, by the way. But don't ask me for financial advice. But anyway, that's a bit of a tangent, but I just thought I'd mention
I
that.
actually never knew the backstory. That is such a beautiful thing. You received a calling and you accepted it. That's extreme courage. And in regards to making many enemies, well, nothing has more enemies than the truth in this day and age. And so I tend to judge people by their enemies, by the way. And if everyone likes you, you're probably not telling the truth. So good for you, Emmett. It's a pleasure.
Thank you, Nancy. Victor, did you want to jump in there?
Oh, sure. I would like to comment on what Will had said earlier. That I think Will was just so quick saying this, but I think it's so important what he said, which is this: first, we have witnessed it everywhere in the world that all this politics and this ideology and identitarism stuff, it has arrived here to empower us. So hey, if you are a little faggy, just go and be yourself. There's no shame and no problem in being like that, and whatever, right? At least to me, I am the least moral person you can ever met, right? It's not like I am Jeffrey Epstein, but I really don't care. I don't care what to do in your intimacy, and I am not scandalized by it. Okay, so really nada. You can't scandalize me.
Yeah.
But anyways, you see how curious it is because first they arrived as an some sort of empowering group. So hey, if you are a little faggy, there is no shame in being like that. And actually, if you start behaving like we were saying for you to behave, everything's going to be all right. You're going to feel great, whatever, right?
Mm.
And now it has become something to suppress people. Oh, you don't accept that I am a faggot? Okay, all right. I'm going to destroy your life, juridically, criminally, right? Whatever, right? And here in Brazil it's the same thing. We're guys. Brazil is the world's number one social laboratory for all these sorts of madnesses. I wish I was joking with you, but Brazil is the first lab. Everything is happening first in Brazil. So when we watch that Europe is going the way it's going, like for example, the United Kingdom, Bolsonaro has brought to us the same system, right? The so-called Christian patriot, right? He brought us the same system, which he modeled from the Chinese. But I think Will had made a great point. It was so quick in his commentary, but I think that the nature of this change, of this difference now, it's so crazy, and it's unbearable for us because we don't know how to react anymore. So they are creating basically a bunch of hesitant people. So you have a group, a political group, who demands all sorts of crazy stuff, and you made and they turn all their enemies into hesitant people, so they can never fight against. It's crazy, right? This guy, they're the devil.
Yeah. This is quite a movement we're up against, and I mean, really, like you have the book, Victor, and you know how comprehensive it is. And I was trying to make the message shorter. I was trying to keep it short, and that's what happens, 300 pages plus. But the main message to get across, I think, to people is that most of the problems we're dealing with is because this movement has got many different kind of, it's like going up to a buffet. There's lots of different options. You can be a Marxist in so many different ways, and people are calling it woke, cultural Marxism, whatever. But it's these types of personalities that are driving all the changes. And so that's why if you talk to people who are patriots, or, you know, they might call themselves nationalists, patriots, right-wing, conservative, libertarians, whatever they call themselves, they're essentially opposed to being coerced by this internationalist ideology. That's, I think, the main message we got to get across. And that, in my opinion, once people get to a certain level of indoctrination, it depends on the person. But, you know, Gabriel said it best earlier, it's best not to look at this as like a political problem. This is, I think it's an issue of psychology and indoctrination. That's the thing. I think if we're ever going to change things around, we have to start looking at it that way, you know. And Will, did you...
I think you're Emmett, just a quick commentary before you pass the mic to Will.
Yeah.
But I think you are being shallow by addressing this problem to a psychological one. I think the correct term we need to use, we are facing an anthropological crisis.
Yes.
Right? Man is in crisis. The human race is in crisis. It's way worse than just psychological torture or cultural bullshit, right? It goes way, way beyond. Like Gabriel said, right? It's a religious thing, right? So now let's see what Will has to say.
Yeah. Before I pass the mic to Will, actually, yeah, you're right. But see, what I focus on the indoctrination because it's the brainwashing that creates this anthropological crisis that we're in. So, like, I'm always trying to bring us back to the solution. You know, and I agree. Will said it before that he mentioned about the doom and gloom thing. We don't want to be pessimistic or negative, and I certainly am not. But it'd be nice if people started to acknowledge that this is the thing driving all the problems and so on. But anyway, sorry, Will, did you want to jump in if you're still there?
Yeah, I'm still there, and I'm a real working type of a guy. I've been in construction for about 25 years, so I'm going to break this down into two different building sites. This might make sense to people. So if you're on two different types of building sites, so one building site, you have reasonable rules, everybody knows them, and it's just there to keep people safe. So the safety officer's there to advise you, put on your gloves while you're doing that. You know, you always need a hard hat because something could fall on your head. You need glasses when you're using like a console abrasive wheel, and you need a respirator when things make dust. So then you go on to a pharmaceutical building site where you need 5 points of PPE, and you're one step away from needing a mask on your face as well. And I straddled those sites for the last 25 years. And what I see about the site with the policeman who comes up to you and says, well, you got to put on your glasses while you're doing that. You know what I mean? And the glasses are put on, and it's a lovely, pleasant interaction. And everybody knows that the guy is there. Put on your glasses. It's safer for you. It keeps him happy, and there are going to be no problems. Whereas you go in contrast to a pharma site where you have to have 5 pints of PPE, your gloves are on all the time. I swear at some stage they're going to get us to wear our gloves while we're eating our lunch and handling paper in case we get a paper cut. So what I see in contrast with what's going on in the ordinary world with ordinary people, we're going from a standard building site to a pharma site. Everybody has to watch what they say, watch what they do. There's cameras everywhere. There's authoritarian figures all over the place, and it grinds people into the ground. And that's where all this kind of depression is coming from, this low mood, this unhappiness, because there's so many rules being concocted. They're churning out more and more every day,
Yeah.
and it's just grinding people into the ground.
Yeah. Well, I did. I don't know if you know this about me, Will, but I'm not. I don't have a trade or whatever, but I have done a bit of construction related stuff, and I was believe it or not, I was a scaffolding labourer in London quite a while back. I was a bit too old to be doing that, and I was in farming for 4.5 years, and I kind of know what you're getting at. Australia is. I was in Australia for 4.5 years farming, and that's this legislation stuff creeping in, and this kind of coercion, and it starts to interfere with productivity and so on. But for the listeners, again, I have to point out, Will is brilliant. He reflects back to me. Like when I hear people like Will talk, say, about the climate change movement and what the European Union is doing with farmers, I feel vindicated, because he'll tell you that there's a coercion and control coming in that's not natural. People are being told how to do things, and this is by bureaucrats in the European Union. They have no connection at all with the Irish land, but they're being told how to do things, and they're getting involved with our livestock and stuff like that. By the way, Will, before we go to anyone else, are you I'm sure you're keeping abreast of things at the moment, like what's the situation with the farmers and so on, and is there still like a lot of tension or conflict with outside parties, shall we say?
Well, you see, what's happening at the moment is, and my apologies to the lads in Brazil, they're signing the Mercosur deal, and we know it's good. It's going to be good for industry, and the door swings both ways. But the beef farmers are very, very worried because there's a huge beef industry in Brazil, and they're allowed to use hormones and antibiotics that have been banned here for a number of years. And there's going to be free trade between the two sides. So what the Irish beef farmers being really worried about is they're on their last legs at the moment. They're nearly being regulated out of existence. CAP is dwindling, and they just want to keep a few animals around the place. And if there's a large amount of Brazilian beef going to come in, because they're so great at producing beef, because they've got so much land, because they can have very, very large feedlots and ideal conditions for producing large steers year round, which we don't have. We have to winter them over the winter, let them grow, cut the forage for it. I know that happens out in Brazil as well, but conditions are much more ideal. Their livelihoods are under threat. There's also a huge amount of rewilding going on. And at the moment, there's a huge debacle going on with the head of board, BIA, has been nabbed bringing in Brazilian beef and not declaring it. And they want that guy to resign, because at the moment, the beef farmers that pay into the Irish Farmer Association, the IFA, are a little bit cross with the Irish government for just signing over the fisheries, signing over the agriculture, giving away the beet industry that we used to have, and dairy is more than likely going to be next. And there is a crisis in Irish farming where 4% of farmers are under 35. So if you move that along, there's only going to be 4% of farmers left in a number of years. So what are we going to do? We're going to lose our food security. And it's not Brazil's fault by any stretch of the imagination. They want to reach out across their borders and sell their product into other countries and receive free trade from other countries to raise the standards in Brazil for farming and for workers and for everything else so they can have a wealthier country. But unfortunately, Ireland seems to be a bit of a sacrificial lamb. We export 90% of our agricultural products as it is. So if there's a flood onto the market, then we might lose some of that exports. And we're not as wealthy a country as people think. If you remove the tech from America, if you remove the pharma, then we've nothing left but agriculture. And if we can't export the product, which is a very, very high premium product, but there's a lot of people and they'll just buy the cheapest, including people in Ireland, including our own. So there's a big worry there, and you know it is some form of protectionism from the Irish farmer, but the IFA aren't really behind it. You know, the government agencies like Board Bia and the IFA, the unions, they seem to be co-opted and bought, and they're not seeing the positive side of trading with Brazil, because we have our milk, beef, butter and cheese. We do have a very, very nice beef. The Brazilians might get a taste for it as a premium product, but at the moment it's being demonized and there's a big fight. I'd like to see how it pans out in the end, but I think there's a lot of panic at the moment, and it's not being looked at correctly, and farmers are very, very worried because we don't have the size of farms that they have in Brazil. Like, they could have thousands, they could have 10,000 cows in one farm over there. The largest farm in Ireland is about 1,000 cows, and that's Tom Brown down in Youghal. And at the moment, he's covering his farm in solar panels, which leach heavy metals, which means that land might be useless afterwards as agricultural land. But there's a lot of short-termism going on in the world. There isn't a lot of long-term thinking by governments, and especially the Irish government, and that's where the unrest is coming from. I leave it back to the table there. I can see a few more hands up.
No worries, Will. Good stuff. Brilliant. I always like hearing you talk about that stuff because I am concerned. I know that, like, all of this stuff, how I describe it, is like the effects of globalism. You know, when you have a government and a state that is, you know, more interested in Ireland being part of the international community than looking after its own people and land and resources and its own agriculture and fisheries. This is what happens. You know what I mean? I know the European Union membership is like a big issue, and you know, we have a lot of things to organise in Ireland first, but this is why I would call myself a patriot and a nationalist, and I do believe that a more nationalistic stance is the antithesis to globalism, you know, having a reasonable amount of sovereignty while still having trade and diplomatic relations with other nations. But, you know, you need to, the situation in Ireland is quite bad in that respect for people who don't really know what's kind of going on.
Just to, before you go, the trouble about the fisheries is we're giving away our natural resources for nothing. We're taking generations of fishermen and we're parking the boats up, and we're losing those skills. And if for any reason that the world fell apart in the morning, those skills are lost. It's like re-wetting the bogs to make the greenies feel happy. Like, peat was our only indigenous source of power, and now they're flooding it. You know, we had a coal-fired power plant down in Money Point, which they shut down, and you can be damn sure they're going to knock just to satisfy this green agenda.
Yeah.
That's state independence, and they're sacrificing state independence at the altar of the European Union to make some people smile so they can get a seat, our government can get a seat in the board. It was a bit like around 1988. We signed over all our mineral rights. I believe it was Royal Dutch Shell for about 8%. Now, in contrast, the Norwegian government signed over their mineral rights for 87 to 90%. And they have the largest sovereign wealth fund in the world. Wow. It's about realizing what's beneath your feet. And unfortunately, we've got a very, very badly educated Irish government that are only interested in their own pocket and not the greater good of the nation.
Brilliant stuff, Will. Excellent summary of what's going on there. And, it's like this is so frustrating, isn't it? Like, so anyone who doesn't know about Ireland and what's going on there, we're being hit with all the same shit other countries are, like the mass immigration, trans, the radical feminist stuff, everything has had an impact on Irish society. And we were just talking about probably the economic and agricultural side of it too. This is why I believe that nationalism is definitely the best stance, like altering your relationship with other nations and these big entities like the EU. And Victor, I don't know if you wanted to jump back in there, but I've got Sean up on the panel as well. So just let me know if you're there, Victor.
Just a quick comment about the industry, the cattle industry of Brazil. These guys are criminals, right? They are the worst scum of earth here. So if Brazilian industry is happening to get inside the Irish land, let's put it like this: they are buying their way into Ireland, okay, and that's it, right? There's nothing more that I can say. It's just that they are a bunch of fucking criminals. They don't respect anyone. They have blackmail on all our politicians, especially it was the biggest cattle industry here in Brazil, JBS, that has made it public all the blackmail they had in our politicians when we were experimenting Lava Jato, right? When our politicians started to get arrested. But then Bolsonaro arrived and Bolsonaro ended Lava Jato, right? So these guys are back in the crime scene right now. And nothing happened to this fucking family of the Batista brothers, right? These guys are criminals. They are the worst criminals that Brazil has ever produced, right? These guys, they aren't capitalists. They aren't entrepreneurs. They aren't businessmen. They are fucking criminals. And excuse me my French. Now let's see what Sean has to say.
No worries, Victor. Yeah, good stuff. Thanks for giving us a little bit of insight there. Sean, are you there? Your mic is on.
Yeah. Thanks, thanks for letting me speak. On the subject of blackmailing politicians, with regard to Jeffrey Epstein, I was just wondering how many other Jeffrey Epsteins there are, because he can't have been the only one. And there are probably guys like Jeffrey Epstein doing what he was doing right now, And I'm sure there are a lot of normies looking at it, not paying too close attention to it, but aware of it, who think that because this guy was caught, because all these crimes were exposed and some maybe high-profile people are implicated, that maybe that's an end to all that nasty business. But I just wondering how much accountability there will be out of this Jeffrey Epstein thing, because I don't think there will be a lot of accountability. I mean, there'll be some sacrificial lambs like Mandelson and Keir Starmer and maybe a couple in the United States. But I just wondering if you're going to see Bill Gates or Hillary Clinton or Bill Clinton or Hillary Clinton behind bars as a result of all of this. What do you think?
It's an interesting one, isn't it? I think you're dead right. Like, there's always, like, I regard it as being kind of like an iceberg, where you can only see the tip of it and then it goes right under the surface. There's probably like a whole network of degeneracy and bullshit going on behind the scenes and stuff and we're just seeing a part of it with the Epstein thing. Certainly he's very high profile, and the fact that he died or whatever the circumstances were, it's kind of pumped it onto another level, and people saying that he's probably was taken now. It was like a fake suicide. I don't really know myself what to believe anymore on it, but I certainly do think that there could be a lot more of this stuff going on. Gents, Will or Victor, do you want to jump in on that?
Well, I think that, listen, Trump got elected with one agenda, which was to arrest the so-called dark cabal, right? Oh, we are going to go after the dark cabal and let's see what's going to happen, because all these Epstein clients, they have no right in walking free. After all, they are one of the worst type of criminals, right, of the world. Like they are dealing with children. But what is mind-blowing is that we received just confusion, right?
Yeah,
so it even got to a point, Will, that we are now, excuse me, and I just passed the mic to you after this brief comment, but we have arrived at a point that some folks are even saying that, hey, maybe Hillary is not guilty after all. Because this is the level of confusion we arrive at, right? Because you just release all sorts of evidence and you release over 1 million files. And hey, uh, who here is capable of analyzing all this? I don't know. I don't know about you, but I am not.
Yeah.
I just like to jump in there. I think he's a colossal distraction. He was a blackmailer. He preyed on people's weaknesses, which were very nefarious weaknesses, and basically documented what they were doing to blackmail them into whatever his friends or who he was associated with, or whatever CIA or Deep Cover or Mossad or Israelis or anyone else wanted to do with it. He was getting paid for that, and he had a lavish lifestyle for it. The guy, to be honest with you, I'm glad he went to meet his maker, because he's going to get his determination in the afterlife. He got it here. He was caught. He was shown out to be it. The files have to be picked through forensically to find out what all these people were doing and what they were tied to, and their dark agendas that they were playing out on. You know what I mean? And I think we're being greatly distracted. We've got a lot of poverty in the world. We've got nearly 17,000 homeless people in Ireland, and there's many other homeless people across the world. We've got a lack of housing for our young. Our populations are dropping in mostly every white Western country in the world, and the white Western country is being distracted by wokeism, by idealism, by over health and safety, by over policing, over regulation to the ordinary person who should be busying themselves by getting a house, starting a family, the what would I say, the continuing of the human race, and what we can do to better ourselves, solving diseases, housing people, and just keeping ourselves going. And all these things, like Trump wanting to take over Greenland, snatching these people in foreign countries, and then these child abuse scandals that keep coming out. We have bigger problems. We're more than likely running out of fossil fuels. You know what I mean? Our agriculture is in decline in Ireland. It's more than likely in decline in Britain. Our industrial strengths are leaving us, and China is running ahead with everything, and their population is in decline as well. And most governments are focused on GDP and making money and bigger marks and bigger houses, while ordinary people are working harder and harder and paying more and more taxes, higher and higher energy prices, having less and less children. And that's the thing that actually worries me as a person, because when I get to 65 or 70 and I'm looking for the pension and wanting to retire, well, maybe I'll just have to keep working on like everybody else. And this is a snowball that's running down a hill. It's getting bigger, and we're becoming more distracted by Epstein, by our politicians playing around, and so on and so forth. But I will say again, this guy was a blackmailer. He preyed on the weaknesses of higher up people, and then he was making money out of it. He was a criminal, and it's as simple as that. He's now gone. Let's move on from him. Let's give the files to the authorities and let them worry about it. Let's focus on building houses, building communities, having better, happier communities and safer communities, and stop this ridiculous creep of regulations, blackmail, and over safety of all the world, because all it's gotten us is more unhappy people, less of a population, less housing, and people fighting for scarcer and scarcer resources. When we have enough resources in the world, we have enough technology, we could live comfortably, we could live more reasonably, and we certainly don't need like 139 data centres in Ireland that are sucking the power of Kilkenny every minute of the day to keep photos alive. I mean, we used to have CDs, we used to have tapes, we used to have photos on paper that you could look back at. Now it's on a screen. If the screen goes dead, you lose your photos, you lose all your memories, and the data centre has taken all the coal, the oil, and the gas that don't be needed to power these centres, to keep these memories alive. We had paper records, we had photographs, we had our music at home in stacks, and now it's just on a little phone and stored in a data center that's taking too much coal and oil and gas to power, while elites get rich off building these data centers, running these data centers, and ripping the life and soul out of the planet so that they can enrich themselves, which should be passed down to ordinary people, and poorer people should have one-bedroom apartments if they're not that good at doing work, or so on and so forth. So I think we're forgetting the fundamentals of life, and we're getting too caught up in these celebrities being criminal mastermind blackmailers like Jeffrey Epstein, or political, we'll say, loudmouths like Donald Trump, who just want the spotlight on themselves all the time to make themselves feel good. I leave it back to you, there, Emmett.
No worries, Will. Yeah, very interesting. I agree. Yeah, it's good to keep things in perspective and so on. And so often, it's been a done thing as well in the past that sometimes a scandal or something would come out being pushed by the media as a form of distraction sometimes. So, it's definitely something to consider. Victor, were you trying to jump in there? My screen has gone a bit funny here with the emojis, but I'm not sure if you're
No,
going to jump in.
not nada. I was just I thought that Will comment was perfect, and truth be told, it's just so ridiculous how this was all published, right, for us, the people, because hey, uh, all of a sudden, for those that are following the subject, take note that around 2018 we started listening to the Q people saying about Epstein and all these pedophiles, right? Which is very curious because it first, this subject first arrived through a Soviet operation, right? And a modern Soviet operation, which is very close, very similar to what happened in Operation Trust. Um, I think that the only difference is that Q has more elements of the truth in it, especially when you see that way before Tulsi Gabbard and Cash Patel were somehow some sort of celebrities, they were being quoted by Q and QAnon people,
Hmm.
right? So look, it's just mind blowing, right? How these guys that were being quoted by a Soviet operation, they are now head of, one is head of the national intelligence, and the other is head of intelligence, right? Of the national police, right? Let's put it like this. Uh, and 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 the other thing is this, that hey, if this was somehow serious, if they were serious about Jeffrey Epstein, uh, Emmett, you were going to be, I don't know, 60 or 70 when the story was were released. If they were serious about this, I was going to be, I don't know, 60, 50 as well. I don't think we have too much of a difference in our ages, but here's the
I'm
point.
21. I'm 21 years of age.
Yeah, I have 21 in one of my legs as well. I have to be honest, if the government, the authorities were serious about Epstein, they were going to present all this evidence into a narrative. And they are merely throwing the evidence in our faces. Oh, you want the evidence? Here it is. Good luck. Good luck going through 1 million files. All right. And you see, whenever the government did something against a criminal of this type, they were always presenting the subject through a narrative. So, hey, here's what happened. Here's the evidence. And this was the first thing that Jeffrey Epstein did. And this was in the middle. This was the last thing. That this was his crew. This is his community, right? So we were going to have some sort of presentation of all his crimes in a cohesive timeline. But no, they merely threw everything on the wall and say, "Oh, just let's wait and see what it sticks." And people will have all sorts of crazy discussions about this, especially when you had the second leak that is already proven that, hey, where Jeffrey Epstein got most of his girls from a Russian agency called Storm, right? So there are people up until this day saying, no, it's Mossad. It's so clear now that it's Mossad and Epstein was Israeli and blah, blah, blah. And so, whatever. We are not here preaching or defending the state of Israel. Fuck Israel. Here's the point. And I don't mean this as a Palestinian or whatever. It's just like, hey, fuck, in a meaning that we don't care right? We don't care. Like, fuck that. Oh, what you're going to have for lunch tomorrow? Oh, fuck it. I don't care, For you really don't care. You just don't care, right? And this is my position. But no. Oh, and we see, you see that guy, Health Ranger. I don't remember his name. Health Ranger is Mike something. I don't remember the name, but it's an idiot right here from which is a parrot of the Russians. And this guy, we had the release of the Epstein files, and then this guy quotes CIA 48 times in less than 2 hours. And he doesn't say anything about Moscow, about Putin, about all the not even that, but all the other stuff that was discovered. No, he doesn't say anything. He just says, "Oh, the problem is CIA, Mike Ranger, Mike Benz, something Health Ranger." It's the handle of this guy here on Twitter, and it's pathetic now, Emmett. At least to me, I think that we are now at the scandal parade, like the defectors have warned us. So the very next step is total war. The very next step is total war. So that's it. We are just kindly waiting and anxiously waiting, right, for this to happen, because even Brazil is going to be hit, I think. Because if America is paying attention, they will at least have mapped all the Chinese rocket sites that we have here in Brazil. So this is the current state of things. The Chinese are building rocket silos in the middle of nowhere in Brazil.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
right.
You know what my position as to what's going on. I don't know if this is a shock to anybody listening, but you know how, say, we've all been talking about what's generally regarded as, you might call, the attack on the West, or the collapse of the West, whatever you want to call it, the globalist agenda that affects Western countries. I believe that we're being kind of softened up. Because if you look at the international communist movement as being an entity, there's so many different parts to it. But to talk about the geopolitical stuff for a moment, Russia, China, and North Korea are all countries that were born of communism in the modern age, right? They're all one-party dictatorships. They've all got communism in the DNA. In North Korea, it's Juche communism, and China, they were formed in 1949, the People's Republic of China. Of course, Russia was, as I talk about in my work, was the major infection point for the whole world, with communism, particularly in the 1920s. The Comintern spread communism around the world. So, and then you have other people like Nyquist and others saying that communism never really died. So what I'm getting at here for everyone is that these entities, as well as brainwashed people in Western nations, have been responsible for pushing this ideology across the world, and it's made us weak in many ways, including militarily weak and confused and so on, and divided and not able to control our countries and open borders and all that stuff. And that my mic dipped in volume. So basically what I'm trying to say is, China is interesting that after decades of Marxism weakening Western nations, now we have the Communist Alliance is on the horizon, getting more aggressive, taking more territory, using politics and economics and so on to spread out now. So that's what I see is going on. There's a great phrase I think of here called nature abhors a vacuum. So if you have a vacuum, something will fill the space, like a gas or whatever. So when it comes to global power, Western civilization in the 20th century, you look at the history, the main entity that stopped communism from taking too much territory was the United States military and their allies. That's why one of the many reasons why the Marxists hate America, because America actually invaded Russia in the very early 20s. I don't know if some of you knew that. Woodrow Wilson sent the US Army in there because they're worried about the Bolsheviks. My point is, that was one of the reasons why Lenin hated the Americans. Also because America is like, arguably is like a big capitalistic success story, arguably. So my point is that America is being surrounded now economically and militarily by this communist alliance. And if you look at 20th century history, you look at like the Cuban Missile Crisis, I think it was 1961, with the two Kennedy brothers involved and so on, and Castro, etc. So this is history repeating itself. It's not anything new. That's what I'm trying to get at here. Go ahead, Victor.
And the worst thing, we are in a moment we are going to pass the mic to Sean, but the worst thing nowadays is that the human capital available nowadays is just terrible. It's just terrible. Can you make a comparison? If you make a direct comparison between Kennedy and Trump, it's just ridiculous. Kennedy was way more intelligent than Trump, right? Trump is just, at least to me, Trump is just a bourgeois, nothing more, nothing less. He's just a bourgeois, which is, and I think people will think, oh, Victor is a fucking communist. No, not at all. But I despise all bourgeois. I simply despise. I think these guys, they aren't even human, because you take the human spirit, you squash it, you repress it, and then you just want to fit in the norm, right? So this is what a bourgeois is. And Trump is just like this. Look how sensitive he is for his image, right? About his figure, his presence. It's just ridiculous. And I just want to add something that you said earlier, which is the only thing that I don't agree with the guys from our side, right? Just saying this like we were on a football team. But anyways, the only thing that I do not agree is this indoctrination thing. I don't believe I don't believe kids are indoctrinated. I believe kids are brainwashed, because indoctrination you presumes, when you have some sort of indoctrination, that you're going to present the other side. So, hey, kids, listen, I'm indoctrinating you about X. So I have to present the enemy of X when I am indoctrinating you. But they don't even do that. They think they just act like, oh, nothing exists outside the system. Nothing exists outside the party, right? So they act like that. So it's basically brainwashing. Yeah, it's brainwashing. It's not indoctrination. Anyone who's saying indoctrination, sure, it's not the case for us guys here, right? But when you see a normie, when he points the finger to his situation and says, "Oh, this is indoctrination," no, brother, this is not indoctrination. It's way worse. It's brainwashing. Because indoctrination, as I said, in indoctrination, we would at least listen to the other side, because this is what the other side says, and this is how you're going to react. No, we simply learned that nothing exists outside this.
Yeah, that's a very interesting perspective, Victor. I like that one. Yeah, it's very good. Sean, did you want to jump in?
Yeah, thanks. When it comes to communism, I don't think it's really communism that they want, really, is it? I mean, it's basically authoritarianism. I mean, total control is what they really want. They don't care about left or right or anything like that. If you look at China, it's supposed to be a communist country, but it's not really. It started off as a communist country with a centrally planned economy and everything. But then they joined the World Trade Organization, and they adopted free market capitalism, and they became the second richest country in the world. But it's a capitalist economy with an authoritarian political system and no opposition, and that's basically what they want. That's why they're pushing the Marxism, is because Marxism is just one step away from authoritarianism, really.
Okay, yeah, no worries. Yeah, so I understand what you're saying. I just have to unpack that. So, James Lindsay made some good points about this. So, after Mao was running the country, then they brought in Deng Xiaoping was the first guy. So, I understand what you're saying, Sean. But see, this is why the definitions of what communism is can be problematic. So it's not just about economics. So you have the communists kind of caught on after a while that if you want to have global revolution, you can't try to use hard communism when it comes to your economy, because you're going to collapse. So they understood that they had to modify how they did things. They start taking on, what you call liberal economics, which has nothing to do with left wing. It's just, more capitalistic tendencies. And then they were able to build up some economic strength. But so what I always try to get at here, it is fair to call them communists, because forget about the economic side of it. They do have a typical tendency to push out and dominate. That's why they're getting more aggressive. That's why they're buying up territory across the world. That's why, for any non-Irish listening, there was members of the Irish Chinese diaspora in Ireland, Chinese nationals in Ireland, saying that members of the Chinese diaspora report back to the Chinese Communist Party. you know. And also in America, did any American listeners, did you know that the main type of immigrant coming into the States through the southern border and the Darien Gap is actually Chinese nationals? So there's an awful lot of stuff going on here. But China, I do regard China is definitely the number one threat to world peace. And Xi Jinping is doing his third term now as the General Secretary of the Communist Party. It's a one-party state. It's a dictatorship. They believe in communist principles. The One Belt, One Road initiative, which is about pushing out and taking more territory and so on. They got that name because during Mao's time, the communists had to fight the nationalists in China. This is before World War II. But there's a lot of things about them that are commie red flags. But I'm very concerned for what's happening over there with regards to Taiwan and Japan. The Chinese aren't stupid enough to start a fight now, but I think that's why they've been trying to weaken the West militarily, and they are a serious problem. When you look at Russia, China, North Korea, I don't mean to freak people out, but this is the world we live in. China, North Korea, and Russia, they all share a border. They're all one-party dictatorships. They all have communism in the DNA. That Russia is now in Ukraine, so it's taken a step west. The Russians and the Chinese have both been caught severing undersea cables, or attempting to sever fiber optic cables under the water in the Baltic Sea, and a Russian vessel was caught in the Irish Sea. I mean, I don't know how other ways you can really say this to people at this stage. We're just going through communism again. It never really disappeared. It's just changed its form. It went a little bit dormant. They've been using cultural and psychological methods to weaken the West. And as well, when you look at Western countries, look at the UK. Now, I know this is a bit of a sore spot for Irish people, because anyone listening, obviously Ireland was under the control of the British Crown. So it's going to be difficult for Irish people to analyse the UK without letting biases kick in. But you do have to admit they were quite powerful at one stage, including militarily. But look at them now. They're absolutely falling apart. The recruitment levels for their military are falling apart, and patriotism has dwindled. That's because of the effects of Marxism. Interestingly, before I pass the mic over, Keir Starmer, who's the PM of the UK, he's a member of the Fabian Society.
Hello.
So was Gordon Brown, Tony Blair, Jeremy Corbyn. These are all Fabians.
I think I lost my connection, guys.
Victor, I can hear you. Can you hear me? No worries, anyone else. I'll just send him a message on the side. But I was just pointing out that the West has been collapsing militarily as well. And I'm sure you've noticed, any listeners in the States, you hear of the lefties, quote unquote, the liberals in Western nations. Have you noticed how they want to start putting immigrants into the armed forces? They've been doing that in the States as well. They want to give immigrants visas or residency in exchange for military service. That's a major threat.
I think I lost my connection. I'm going to reconnect.
Okay, Victor just sent him a message there. But yeah, there's definitely a pattern. What I'm trying to get at here is, we've all been absorbed with the so-called collapse of the West, the fact we have no borders, etc., etc. And I appreciate that. The trends in the school, the political divisions, the tension, and so on and so forth. But what I'm getting at here is, I think that's not the final stage. We're in a process now of kind of a weakening process that is, you can see examples of it everywhere. But I think that something else is coming down the tracks. Because when you look at human history, and I don't mean to, again, it sounds like I'm being all pessimistic, I'm really not, but when you look at human history, lots of civilizations have risen and fallen. And what we've all been doing is, really, when you think about it, everyone opposed to globalism have been pretty much complaining about what's happening and attempting to get ourselves organized to stop it. What I'm getting at here is we can't take anything for granted and assume that everything's going to be okay. And I think that certainly nationalism is the antithesis to globalism, and patriotism is the solution. But as Yuri Bezmenov, one of the Soviet defectors, said once, the communists learned how to come up with a system of injecting toxic ideas into their target, which is Western nations, and to put these ideas about twist people's ideas of patriotism and other issues, to destroy traditional family values, to criticize capitalism and so on, to weaken us, in order to make it easier for them to push us into this globalist system. But I'm rambling now. Victor, are you back?
Yes, sir. I had a little problem here. It's normal, right? Using the browser, using my laptop to participate on a space it's always a mess, right? And I think it's for everyone. It's just terrible to hold the spaces using your computer. I think that what's being discussed here, we can some sort of make an abstraction that we are all talking about power and its dynamics. And at least to me, and I was only able to do this because I had an honest conversation and I study a lot what this friar has to say, which is Friar James of St. Joseph. He's a Brazilian and he's a Carmelite. And what's really impressive is that I understood with him this, that the church once had a social side, right? And the social side of the church was the institution, basically, that was obligated to deal with power here on earth. So if we do a simple mental exercise, and let's imagine that we're all having this conversation here 600 years ago, right? So probably we are going to, very likely that this conversation wouldn't exist. But let's say it did exist 600 years ago. And the first thing that we would notice is that our approach would be completely different, right? Why is that? First, because of power. What dynamics of power would we be into 600 years ago? Oh, we have the emperor or the king, right? This family and this man, the emperor or the king, has received a blessing from the church, and the church is occupied by the vicar of Christ. What is the meaning of vicar? Vicar means him that substitutes, right? So when people say, I just assuming that you guys don't know this, right? So excuse me if I sound arrogant, but vicar, we have the Pope here. The Pope is the vicar of Christ, right? The Pope is the substitute of Christ here on earth. Christ had his mission. He went away, right, for heaven, and now he left us with the first Pope, and then the church naturally was electing popes after Peter. This for a believer, right? 600 years ago, everyone here would probably be a believer, a Catholic believer, right, in Europe. And what's mind-blowing is that our whole approach to power would be so different from nowadays. Because nowadays, the discussion we are all having is a discussion full of vanity, full of vulgar first impressions, and we don't know how the state exists anymore. We simply don't. I had internship in the federal, in the IRS of Brazil. Let's put it like that. In the Internal Revenue, I forgot the whole name. Excuse me, but I had 10 years ago. I was an intern at the Brazilian IRS, and one thing that I noticed there it's so crazy that hey, we don't have a clue on how things work on a state level, on a municipal level, on a city level, on the federal level. We don't have a clue, right? And what I noticed is this, that before we had Christ, right? The substitute of Christ was blessing families, and this blessing was the official authority, right? Like, hey, if you receive this blessing, the church is recognizing you as an authority. And now, what is the blessing that we give to these authorities? Is the popular vote? Right? Is the popular vote, right? So we inverted everything. We did like Pope Francis, like Cardinal Bergoglio. We inverted everything, right? No, there's no such thing as hierarchy. There's no such thing as real authorities. Anyone can have their opinion, and it doesn't matter anymore, right? And anyone can has the right to share his opinion with the others. So it's unbelievable because, at least to me, and I think as an old man, I don't think that everyone has the right to an opinion, right? You can say whatever you want, right? But yeah, you don't have the right to say this publicly, at least because you are retarded, right? So your opinion is irrelevant. I'm not even censoring you. It's just, excuse me for that. It's just being honest, right? That you're just so stupid that you don't have any right to talk about your opinions. But anyways, excuse me for this rant. But I truly think that the real conversation we are trying to have is the conversation about power, about legitimate authorities, and about the dynamics of power itself, right? It's just that, and I understood, at least me, and this is my personal opinion, whatever, right? If someone um, doesn't agree, but at least to me, I think that we have to return to the old. Right? We have to return to the legitimate authorities because the church always had a social side, and now it doesn't exist anymore. The social side. But one thing I have to tell you: the church never had any type of idea on how to run the economy. It had an idea on how to run society, but not economy. You see, and all the conversations about economy, let's put it like this: capitalism is economy itself. Capitalism is not an ideology. Capitalism is the structure of reality. It's how the economy works. And all communists know this. They all know this, right? Especially the Soviets, because the Soviets, when they hijacked the German land, they stayed. The part they took from the Germans, it's where it was located. I think Hayek or Mises. It was Mises' office, right? So they read all of Mises' notes and works. They understood that, hey, it's impossible for us to have this sort of controlled economy. It's just impossible. It's impossible to be made. Anyways, but as Brazil, the whole world is now Brazil. It was like this. First, we were an empire, right? And we had our emperor, which was a Freemason. But then the Freemasons made a coup in Brazil, and now we're leaving the third coup, right? The second coup, actually, which is now there's a group inside the Freemasons in Brazil that they are taking over. And this group is the communists. So America is not different, and Europe is not different as well. So first, you guys, we all had the Freemasonry revolution, and now we're going to have the communist revolution because it's a natural step. It's just a natural way. Okay, this is my opinion, right? Whatever. Let's see what Will has to say. I think enough of my rant.
No worries, but well, you did threaten me earlier and say you were going to rant, so you're just doing what you said you were going to do. I don't know, is Will still there? Will, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still there, and it's a very, very interesting conversation tonight, Emmet, and thanks for hosting the space. But if you zoom out, right, every country is about energy, power, population, and food supply. So our populations are dwindling in a lot of the Western countries. It's dwindling in China.
Back in 2 seconds, folks. Sorry, back in 2 seconds.
I'm still listening to you, Will. You're still live, okay? It's just Emmet had a problem.
Thank you. But energy, power, population, and food, they're kind of the four pillars that you stand upon. And if you look at any of the countries, the US has a lot of energy, Russia has a lot of energy, Saudi Arabia has a lot of energy, and China relies on all of that energy. And that's where your alliance is coming from. And a lot of the other countries are running out of those things. They're running out of food because they're getting on ideologies like the Green Agenda. They're running out of power as well because they don't have any power to supply themselves. The countries that are not aforementioned, like the US, Russia, and the UAE, or the countries out in the United Arab Emirates that have all the oil and so on and so forth. And it's a big struggle at the moment between all of them. And countries like Ireland that don't have their own indigenous power sources, we only have turf. We have to trade. And what's happening is the governments want more and more power, and it's centralization of power because they think they're going to collect more taxes. More money means more power. Well, it doesn't. You can burn as much money as you want and print as much money, but if you run out of paper, then you're not going to have any fire, so you're not going to have any power. So it's about a huge power struggle and about a huge power trading regime. So we're only dealing with human beings that are inside in the political sphere that are all trying to trade with each other. And then, as Emmett has said quite rightly, you have communism, you have Marxism, you have socialism, and then you have capitalism. And you've all those guys mixed around inside in the pot of the political powers that are trying to push their ideals out into the world and trade amongst each other. And while all this is happening, you have mounting homeless people, you have rising costs of running a home, and then you have dwindling populations. So they've taken their eye off the ball because they've gone into universities and they've got co-opted by idealism, communist idealism, LGBTQ, capitalism, Marxism, socialism, and so on and so forth. And all these isms are causing a huge amount of problems in the world. I mean, I'm just a small farmer and builder from Ireland, and my focus is getting enough coal into the fire at night, getting enough food into my belly. These are basic things that ordinary people really, really do need. And we're expending a lot of capital energy and a lot of political energy looking for the right fit, the right model that'll keep everything running. Now, I don't have the answers to those models, but I'm not very, very keen on any of those models. It is about trading power for food and about keeping your own population high enough that you'll have enough of a reproductive base that you can actually keep your country going. And just like Emmett has introduced me into Marxism, where the governments turned their back on the ordinary person and they look at all these isms to solve their problems. Well, the isms aren't going to solve your problems. It's about keeping the lights on, being friendly with your respective partners that have energy, trading with them. You can give your food over for some energy if they don't have countries that can produce enough food to feed their populations. And that's where this big argument across the world is coming from. We've forgotten that we have to keep our populations up. We also, I suppose, have to keep control of populations. We have to keep the reproductive cycle to keep our respective countries at the amounts that we need to keep them going. But our politicians seem to have been lost in that, and now they're losing their way. And that's where you get the breakdown in all these structures, and you get wars across the world, which we have at the moment because they think there's lack and scarcity. It's a big world. There's plenty of energy out there. There's plenty of people out there. It's about keeping your country alive and keeping things balanced. And when you unbalance them with LGBTQ and so on and so forth, and no disrespect to anyone in that community, you need children to be brought up in a reproductive faith where that you can have a 2.3 or 2.4% or point basis reproduction in life, so that we can have Brazilian people, Chinese people, British people, and Irish people, and all the other countries and their respective faiths, religions, and communities that you can go and visit. Like I went over to Australia, I've been to China, I've been to Denmark, I've been to Holland, I've been over to France. And the nicest people that you will find is out in the countryside, where they produce the food, where they produce the beer, where they produce the whiskies, where they produce the wines, where you'll find the purest of people and you can relate to their cultures, eat their different foods, and enjoy their different idiotisms across the world. Sorry, I'm saying that wrong now, but they enjoy their different cultures across the world and enjoy their food and so on and so forth. We don't need communism or Marxism or this one world government. We're all just the same people, and you get this bland grey nonsense. I mean, that seems to be what's going into all our governments, is they just want us to be one world government, and that's going to solve the problem. Well, it's not going to solve the problem. It's going to make us all the same. You'll have no diversity amongst the communities. You know what I mean? And that's where the mistake is being made. And all this arguments among senior politicians and this these blackmailers that are getting into the government and bringing him to one side and demonizing him, so that good people can be just co-opted and taken down by silly ideas. And that's where I'd like to end my point, and I hope people can take my point to that. Thanks, Emmet.
No worries, Will. Great stuff there. Actually, you triggered off a few thoughts in my head, but just checking. Victor, did you want to sign off first before I go on the rant here?
Oh, unfortunately, yes, I have to go. People are demanding dinner here. It's just the dictatorship of the hungry. Yeah. And
You're being coerced. This is like the gulag
yeah,
for you. The kitchen is like the gulag, is it? You're being forced to do hard labor.
exactly. But at least I like to. But no, today we're going to have some hot dogs, and they're just quick stuff. But it's just the timing thing. I think Will comment was just perfect, And the thing is, when we are talking with all these country folks, with people who run reality, let's put it like this, you see that they are all very chill, and that they are just good people, And even if that person is bad, like, hey, this guy like to do evil stuff, you see that he's somehow normal, right? Because he is in touch with reality, right? He understands that, hey, if I let, at least this is for the Englishmen and you guys from Ireland, but okay, if I let my door open, I'm going to say something very vulgar, right? If I let my door open here on the countryside, probably the bogman will invade my home, right? So you are facing real threats in the countryside. You just like to be chilling, whatever, right? You can't be chilling right now because it's harvest season, right? So you have to harvest, or you will lose your crops and you will starve to death, right? But in a city in São Paulo has 18 million people. Can you believe that? Can you believe 18 million people? So it's just mind blowing what we're witnessing, how our lives how our lives take place here in the urban settings. So I don't know, guys, but hey, I have to go before people stab me here in Brazil, and this is a normal thing in Brazil. You just someone arrive with a flip flop and just stab you to death, right? Okay, family sometimes. But this is we had a very interesting conversation, and I'm looking forward for us to repeat this every Friday if possible, because this is the second Friday that I participate, right? And well, this was just awesome. Will, Sean, everyone who spoke. We had Honey Badger here, so it was fantastic. I love it, and very interesting conversation. And just want to send a shout out to Sergio and João Valadares. These guys are my friends, right? They are the Brazilians, the only Brazilians here. Right. So, guys, thank you so much. Thank you, Emmet. You are a great host. And yesterday with Nyquist, you were perfect, right? I think you guys should do every Thursday as well. Thank you, guys.
Brilliant stuff. Thanks, Victor. I appreciate that, man. I love the energy and the passion. And it's like I like hearing about what's going on in Brazil. Of course, you always support my work, so I appreciate that. As for the Friday thing, I was thinking about it earlier. I'd love to do like a regular, make this a weekly thing and start to build the audience. I know you're probably listening away, but yeah, like sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I am listening to you. Yeah. It's my final last 30 seconds with you. Just listen to your commentary, then I will go.
No worries. Yeah. So, well, we'll talk on WhatsApp anyway. But thanks very much for participating, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you, brother. Thank you, Will. Thank you, guys. See you next Friday.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks, Victor. And just on what Victor said, I mean, we've all got places we need to be and family. What will I say, demands and things like that, and we've brought them on ourselves, and I'm sure Victor has plenty of children over there and things like that, and thank God you have, and the best of luck to yourself and your partner, you know what I mean, and that's what it's all about. It's about having family, and it's about having people around you, and it's about getting together and having good food and good drinks and a good job to go to. And I think that's what everybody's hoping and praying for, and not too much bureaucracy and complications and speed cameras and too much safety and so on and so forth, which is making us unsafe at this stage. Nobody likes to be wrapped in a woolen blanket. You're just going to get too hot. And right now, at this point, I think our politicians are trying to wrap us in a woolen blanket and make us too hot. And that's really what's happening in the world is we're getting heated up by regulations. Things aren't very free at the moment, and the authorities are clamping down too hard on everybody, and they're starting to become very unpopular. And I think that's what a lot of governments around the world have to watch. You're not letting your populations breathe. They're working too hard. They're working too many hours. They're driving too many miles. They're not going out there and procreating and having families. You know, you're not building enough houses, and energy isn't cheap enough to allow the population to thrive on the planet. And if it is about killing the planet, you're doing it very well. And don't forget, you're next. The people that are going to take over from you are going to take up your reins, and they're going to keep riding that horse into hell. And you're not going to have grandchildren and granddaughters and so on and so forth, because it's going to be too expensive for your children to have children and their children to have children. So best of luck killing the future generations, because that's the touch paper that you're lighting.
Yeah, good, great points, Will. And actually, to take up something you mentioned earlier, it's ironic, isn't it, that we hear a lot of talk about diversity and stuff like that, but actually, this globalistic commie agenda actually destroys the naturally occurring diversity amongst peoples and cultures, and we get kind of forced into this like world collective. It's a real tragedy, and I always say that this kind of agenda is like it increases collectivism and uniformity, and it destroys the natural differences between people, and it's something that we have to resist. And they say that they want more diversity and so on, but really that's just the wrecking ball to break down nations and so on. So yeah, it's like I do agree we have to return to more traditional values and such. It's really seems to be the way out of this.
Well, I mean, Victor just touched on it earlier. I mean, Jesus came down to the earth, and we have the seven deadly sins and the Ten Commandments. And the followers of Jesus earlier on, they were the way. And when Jesus was nailed to the cross, he was nailed to the cross by a certain section of community, by the Jewish rabbis, and by the Romans, who obviously were led by these rabbis, or I may have been getting things wrong there, and they wanted to enforce their rule of money and law and so on and so forth. You know what I mean? When you break away from natural law, when you have, what will I say, birth control and so on and so forth, and you have women in the workplace, you've got two incomes now in a household where the man and the woman have to be out working, and the state take care of the children. And that's the indoctrination of the children. I believe a mother should be at home, and she should be taking care of the children and bringing them to school and so on and so forth. And the man should be out working and building the world and making decisions, because man is stronger and should take comfort and take knowledge from his wife. I know this is very, very traditionalistic, and take knowledge from his wife and observe his children and how things are working in the world, and can go back to his boss. Like my man came to me earlier on and said his children were being disturbed by what they've been taught in schools. When you had the breakdown of the family unit, when you had the woman going out working, when the house was empty all day, you made energy and food more expensive, and you had to have two people working in a household. I think that was the real breakdown in the family unit, and where our population started dropping. Because when you have women in the workplace, it's very stressful for them, because they're dealing with men all the time rather than just their husband. They don't get a break. They're going to the workplace. There's men and women in the workplace. And that gives a clash, because the men in the workplace are not their husbands. They don't have so much respect for them. So the husbands get quite turned off by women. The women get quite turned off in the workplace by men. And the argument then is carried on home. I know I'm being very traditionalistic about this. But I think that's the mainstay of the arguments and where the populations are dropping. Because if you've got a woman who goes into the workplace and a man goes into a workplace, they've got separate earnings. They're not relying on each other. They can just earn differently. They can get an apartment with other women, and women can have their own space. Men can have their own space. They drink with each other. They're not getting together. I mean, you don't have the weddings that you do have and the unity that used to be there. I can see from a number of years ago, I mean, when you didn't have too much of a rule of law in Ireland, there was 50 cars above in my local pub. 49 of them got home. There might have been one or two. The publican's car and the local drunk were left above in the pub at the end of the night. But someone went home, a girl went home with a boy, a man went home with a woman, you know, and the next thing you had a wedding and you had children. Once you had this safety element and diversity and inclusion and LGBTQ and whatever else that mixed into that situation, and you tightened up the restrictions and the laws, that's gone now. My one of my local pubs is gone. The second one is probably about to go because the local publican is 91, but he's doing his best to keep it going. And then in my local towns, both to the front of me and to the back of me, you go in there on a Saturday night, all the pubs are shut down. All the takeaways are going, and I deliver takeaways. I used to deliver takeaways before I got a proper job, but I used to deliver takeaways on a Saturday night. And you weren't necessarily delivering to families. You were delivering to 3 or 4 women in a house, 3 or 4 men in a house. They weren't going to the local pub and mixing with each other. They were getting their takeaways. They were getting their cheaper beers because it's expensive to eat in the pubs. It's expensive to eat out, and they're not meeting with each other. You know what I mean? And you've got this, I suppose, if you look into the demographics, you've got lonely men and lonely women are starting to spread out. And with the demographics of families, they're starting to shrink. And if you look in the political spectrum, then the politicians are probably looking at the same figures that I'm looking at, and they're getting worried, and they're getting people from other countries to move over to Ireland. And those people have to pay for flights, they have to get used to rules in another country, and then they see what's going on in that country. The men aren't mixing, the women aren't mixing, they're staying in separate situations. So are the people that came in, the men that came in, and the women that came in. Now, the hope for the women and men that came in, they can go back to their own countries and buy cheaper houses. Now the price of houses are rising up in those other countries, and their dreams are being eviscerated because their governments are looking that all their population, their young population is emigrating. They're leaving, they're going to other countries. They can't afford to build the cheap social housing. They have to keep the elderly population going with pensions and so on and so forth. So they're importing from other countries as well. So you have this knock-on effect that's actually killing every country because governments are getting worried that their GDP is going down, that their productivity is going down, and it's actually because they rose taxes on pubs, on fuel for houses, on fuel for cars. When I was younger, it was, I know I'm jumping around a lot, Emmett, but when I was younger, a fiver would take you to a dance festival. There was plenty of girls, you'd have a great night, and you might meet a partner. That's all gone now. You know, there's parties in cities where people are close. I mean, Victor said there earlier, there's 18,000 or 18 million people in San Paulo, but you have to go out to the countryside to experience the actual country.
Mm.
So there's too many people packed into cities. They're not mixing with each other in the proper manner because they're all divided by ideologies. And just as Victor said, is the old church seems to be dead. The new church is all about LGBTQ and about diversity, inclusion, and so on and so forth. They've lost their way as well, which is a very, very worrying thing. So we're at a crossroads at the moment from what I can see. I'm 46 now, you know what I mean? You're probably 21, as you said earlier. But we can both see that crossroads, you know, very clearly because we're in a midlife situation. And I suppose what I'd really like to impart, and as Victor said, we have to get back to the traditional ways. The government looks after the economy, and the religious situation looks after the procreation of life. And then there's plenty of cheap housing, and there's plenty of cheap beer and good times and plenty of festivals. So we can get back to getting men and women together and having a lot of procreation and having a lot of life. And I know that could be a little bit messy, but it was always messy. But we were a lot happier in that messy situation of 50 people inside in a pub, and 48 or 49 cars drove home. I know there was accidents where people lost their lives and intoxication was blamed, but at least 46 or 47 people got home and they got married and they had kids, and we had a better population. Overregulation seems to be the problem at this point, and that goes back to communism and Marxism, where the government turned their backs on the good of their people, and they looked at corporations and rules and regulations and jobs, and that's really what's killing things. We had plenty of jobs filling potholes and clearing roads and clearing rubbish, and construction workers going out there and building houses. Overregulation and too much paperwork and too much computer work leads to too much of a drain on regulation and paperwork and computer work, and not enough construction in the world to keep our world running and to keep people procreating.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going wrong there. And I know it sounds like, we're talking about how we'd like things to be in society and go back to more traditional ways. A part of me thinks that I know that, say, Ireland is just one country in this whole big mix, and it's things that maybe have changed. Maybe they can't go back to the way they were in some ways, but at the same time, we should kind of want that. There's a lot of things have been taken out of our hands and so on, and there's a lot of problems. I know, like, see, the way my brain runs with this stuff, Will, I'm always trying to think about what's the solution, because I never wanted to spend my whole life just, commentating on what's going on and things never ever kind of changing. That was never my intention. It was always to try and have a solution. So I always, the last couple of years, I've been mostly preoccupied with how can you get patriots in power, people with traditional values, and into the role. That's why my work, for anyone listening, has always been about trying to fix the ideological mess in the country, because that would allow you to, in theory, have a strong nationalistic patriotic movement, and then you could probably try to find a political solution to get into the halls of power and stuff, because at the moment, like, the odds of that happening are not good unless the movement gets organized. That's mostly what I've been preoccupied with the last while.
Yeah, well, the solution is, and I said it earlier on, we're at a crossroads, Emmett, and we're talking about the crossroads, and we're seeing the crossroads play out on the television and with people. And when I pick up the papers and I read the papers for the meantime, and I look at social media and things like that, and I pick up the sound bites and I listen to the guys on the ground, the men I work with every day and the women that I work with every day. And there's a lot of disquiet about too much regulation, too much rules. The work isn't allowed to flow. They aren't allowed to flow on their work day because they're being taught too much idiisms and ideologies. You know what I mean? Here's the perfect world as we see it. The world is not perfect. By any stretch of the imagination, it's not perfect. And we must accept that we don't live in a perfect world. You're not going to meet the perfect girl. You're not going to meet the perfect man. But if it's close enough to it, just run with it. And what we're being sold on the television and in safety statements and risk assessments and method statements is you should look for the ideal situation. It's just not going to happen. And when people are sold the ideal situation, like children going to school, they're being sold the ideal situation. Maybe it doesn't fit for you, but they keep searching for it. And that's the type of thing. I mean, I know you and me are talking. We look for the ideal situation. You're looking for the ideal situation. Maybe that's just a mistake that everyone's making, including governments. They're looking for the ideal situation. Governments, and you and me, should turn away from the Marxist situation. We've gone down that rabbit hole. I've gone down that rabbit hole of the ideal situation as well. Sometimes you've just got to go with, just like governments, they've just got to go with it. I see birth control, and I see the different religions. I've respect for all the different religions, but we've gone to the extreme of religion, like the Talmud is being shoved down our throats by social media. We'll say the extremes of Muslimism is being shoved down our throats as well, and the throats of the young. It's this idealism that's destroying the planet. Nothing is ideal. Sometimes you'll be cold, sometimes you'll be hungry, sometimes the car won't start. You know what I mean? But you've just got to accept that and find a way around it. You can't just be blaming your mechanic, or the fact that the government isn't supplying you enough coal, or the electricity is too expensive. You know what I mean? And just with our governments, they're looking for idealism as well. You've got to look within. You've got to look within your country if you're a politician, and the power of your people to move things forward. You've got to press on and get things done. You can't just stop and look for a rule book. I mean, when Jesus came down to earth, he was looking for the way. Just find the way, and you'll get the way. But don't just be looking on the rule book or looking to your other people and saying, what am I going to do now? Find your own way of doing things. And with governments, they're looking around, they're looking for votes, they're looking for one or two votes here and there. And I would say it's penny wise and pound foolish. And that's the way the governments are looking at the moment. You've got to look at the pound, you've got to look at the future of your people, the future of energy. I mean, when the European Union was formed, it was a trading bloc. We plenty of milk, beef, butter, and cheese, but we didn't have parmesan. You know what I mean? And we didn't have pesto. And the Italians brought us that. And the Brazilians brought their flair, and the ossobuco stews and the black bean stews and so on and so forth. But if you're going to try and just blend that all into one, and we're just going to be bland and grey, and that's what the governments. There's a power struggle inside the governments at the moment, and there's the BRICS. There's Brazil, Russia, India, and China. That was sold to us as well. There's the European Union, and there's the Americans. Really, it is Russia, it's Saudi Arabia, and all that block over there, and then it's America with the power as well. They hold we'll say, the liquid power in the world. But Europe and China, and we'd say, to a greater or lesser extent, Australia has a lot of minerals as well. And we have to find a way of sharing those things out so that each country can thrive. And at the moment, there's a war between communism, socialism, Marxism, and capitalism. And we have to find a way of living together in some way. I know I'm talking about a world government as well, not in that respect. We have to respect each other's beliefs and religions, and countries, and so on and so forth. Like, if you're coming into a Catholic and secular country like Ireland, and you're trying to push being Muslim, or being Sikh, or so on and so forth, respect where you're coming to. Like, when we go out to China, we have to respect their rules. When we go to UK, we have to respect their rules. We can't be pushing Irish into the country and saying, well, you've all got to be Irish now, or you've all got to be one nation now. We can't just be one world government. And that sort of push to be one world government, it's not going to work very well, because everybody has their identities. They've got their different foods, different beliefs, different cultures, and different countries. And that really has to be recognized by the governments of the world, and respect our separate identities. And that's really what has to be pushed to the fore.
Yeah, good stuff there, Will. Oh, Jesus, my audio sounds good for the first time tonight. Just as I'm wrapping up, I fixed a little audio problem here, finally. Yeah, good stuff, Will. I agree with, the kind of points that you're making there. I'm just going to wrap up here shortly now to go and get some food and so on. But anyone listening in, thanks for the comments and such on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe. People always tend to forget to do that. Victor was talking about us doing like most Friday nights or whatever, but my work schedule is a bit weird. It's like I won't be able to do every Friday, but I'll try to make them regular enough anyway. Going to get back on the horse. But thanks very much, Will, for your support. It was great that you joined in, and also Honey Badger as well, one of my pals in the States. So much to talk about, really, so much going on. But yeah, thanks very much for joining and so on. I've got going to be on, actually speaking to Martin Murphy on Sunday morning. He's got a new podcast going, so I reached out, be on his show Sunday morning, and then I've got probably Jan in London in a week and a half or so. He's going to be on my live podcast, so looking forward to that. I'm kind of, I'm very frustrated because I don't know if I'm being kind of throttled or whatever, restricted with my reach on social media, but I know I have to get my information out there somehow, so I'm going to be pushing on all fronts, and hopefully if I get a few more good guests in the bag, like the ones with Jeff were good for just getting the stream set up and all my equipment set up and this and that, but I'll be able to, hopefully if I get a few more big guests on, it'll push things onto another level. So I'm really excited about that. But anyway, thank you very much for joining me, folks. It's been a pleasure. Make sure you follow me here on X. Make sure you follow Will. And if you're listening back, because this show is going to be up on YouTube as like a whole, video file. So I'll tell you all what I'm doing, because I know you're just listening. But basically, I'm live streaming my desktop interface so people can see me clicking on the emojis and stuff, and it's just a picture of my profile with the spaces if you're looking at the desktop yourself. So that's what people are seeing on YouTube and on Rumble, and they can watch the video file back. So if you're listening, make sure you follow Will. I'm just going to hover over his profile there, so at Will Quain, so you can see it on the screen there. And reach out to me if you want to follow Victor or Honey Badger. Make sure you send me a DM here on X at Resolving R. So anyway, thank you very much, folks. Good night, and I'll end the stream now. Thank you.